Welcome back to One Stop Law. In our previous video, we looked into the various factors uh, that are responsible for the present humanitarian crisis going on in Sri Lanka. We saw how the country have exhausted all its foreign exchange reserves, which is highly under some foreign debt, unable to import goods from other countries, and has now in some unprecedented economic crisis. In this video, we will look into the effect of this crisis on the common citizens of the country, and we will also try to look into the situation which is awaiting next for the country. So let's get started with the video. Let us first look into the various effects of this economic crisis on the daily lives of the common citizens of Sri Lanka. Now, in my previous video, I have told you that how Sri Lanka is a country who is heavily dependent on imports for its essential items as well. Like Sri Lankan economy is heavily dependent on foreign countries for import of basic essentials for their citizens like sugar, pulses, and cereals. And because the country is out of foreign exchange reserves at present, it is now unable to pay its existing import bills, as a result of which it cannot import goods from outside at present, as a result of which the country has been hit by inflation, an all time high rate of inflation, which has raised the price of the daily articles, the food articles, to its new high, I mean all time high, to so much so that at present 1 kg of rice costs more than rupees 500 in Sri Lanka. Milk powder, a packet of milk powder which is so essential for babies and children, costs more than rupees 800 per packet. Sugar, so essential in all kind of cooking and as a part of our daily life, it costs more than 300 rupees per kg. Thus, the country is facing acute food shortage. At least 500,000 Sri Lankans have fallen into the poverty line in the past few months, which is a very, very terrible and depressing situation. Not only basic food articles, the country is running out of essential medicines as well. So much so that there is an acute shortage of essential drugs and essentials in the hospitals. That on 29th March 2022, all scheduled surgeries in various hospitals across the country were suspended because of shortage of medicines. Many other hospitals also suspended their routine surgeries and reduced large number of laboratory tests. Many state-run hospitals were also reported to be running out of life-saving drugs. On 8th April, the Medical Council of Sri Lanka issued a warning that there would be a catastrophic number of deaths, which is likely to be in excess of the combined death toll of COVID-19, the 2004 tsunami, and the civil war running in the country, unless a replenishment of supplies is made in the coming weeks. The Singapore Red Cross Society issued warning declaring Sri Lanka's medical crisis as an unprecedented humanitarian crisis in the last few weeks, which is terrible for a country. Because of high inflation and also not able to import gas and fuel from other countries, Sri Lanka is also running out of gas, and people, the general public, have to wait in long queues for 12 to 14 hours in a day to get a domestic gas cylinder refilled. And it is also reported that some people have even died while waiting in those long queues. Soldiers have been stationed at gas stations to calm customers who line up for hours in this. Exams have also been postponed indefinitely in the country due to shortage of money to import papers. Because the country is running short of papers, exams in the country have also been postponed. What a situation is Sri Lanka going through, you all can imagine. And if all these were not enough to make people's life more miserable, the country is going daily for 10 to 14 hours of power cut to save fuel. In recent weeks, shops were forced to close down because they cannot run fridges, air conditioners, or fans, and daily blackouts, power cuts of 10 to 14 hours just make people's life more terrible and horrible during this hot summer. Let us now look into what's happening in the country at present, how the citizens of Sri Lanka have reacted to this situation, and how the government has responded to it. Due to this acute shortage of food, medicine, and fuel, thousands of Sri Lankans took to streets in Colombo in late March, demanding government action and accountability. Public frustration and anger erupted on March 31st. People started demonstrating outside the president's private residence. Police used tear gas and water cannons to break up the protests and imposed a 36-hour curfew afterward. President Rajapaksa declared a nationwide public emergency on April 1st, giving authorities powers to detain people without a warrant and blocked social media platforms. However, the protests went ahead the next day in defiance of the curfew and demanding Rajapaksa's resignation, which prompted police to arrest hundreds of demonstrators. The emergency ordinance was revoked on April 5 after dozens of lawmakers walked out of the ruling coalition, along with stepping down of 26 cabinet ministers, which left the Rajapaksa's government in a minority in the parliament as it struggled to quell protests amid the country's worst economic crisis in decades. Students from colleges and universities keep on demanding resignation of Rajapaksa. However, President Rajapaksa have issued a statement that he will not resign. However, he has urged all the parties in the country as well as all the citizens to stay together and work together in this hour of crisis to take the country out of this economic and humanitarian crisis. Let us look into as to what's stored ahead for Sri Lanka from here. Sri Lanka is now seeking financial support from IMF and turning to regional powers that may be able to help it. Sri Lanka has also requested help from its neighboring countries like China and India, with New Delhi already issuing a credit of more than 1 billion US dollars in March 2022. But some analysts have warned that this assistance might prolong the crisis of Sri Lanka rather than solving it. There is still much uncertainty about what comes next because national consumer price inflation has almost tripled from 6.2% in September to 17.5% in February, according to the country's central bank. Moreover, the economic crisis and the humanitarian crisis going on in the country has prompted alarm from international observers as well. Speaking at a news briefing on the April 5 incident of lifting of the national emergency, Liz Throssell, a spokesperson of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, expressed huge and deep concern for Sri Lanka's official response to this situation. The government's curfew, social media blackout, and police action in breaking up the protests could prevent or discourage people from expressing their grievances, as she said, that adding that these measures should not be used to stifle dissent or hinder peaceful protest. She also said that the United Nations has been keeping a close watch and warned against the drift to militarization and weakening of institutional checks and balances in Sri Lanka. So this is all for this video and continuation on the topic of Sri Lanka. We hope and pray that Sri Lanka comes out of this crisis very soon. We just saw that all the reasons which has prompted this island paradise to this tremendous economic come humanitarian crisis. We learned all those causes because it has a lesson to teach to other countries as well. We saw how Sri Lanka have reached there, and we hope that no other country go to this tremendous crisis point because as per the experts it's very difficult to speculate even how many years will take Sri Lanka to come out of this bizarre situation it has got into. The countries are extending their help to it, fine, but yes, the country has to evolve, come out of the situation on its own, and it has to really work hard on that. In this note, I conclude this video. See you in some next video on some other topic. Thank you all.